episode 117, From Artist to Entrepreneur. Welcome to Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast, helping micropreneurs find your micro influencer magic. I'm your host, Candice Rodardi, and this week I'm joined by Don Abad. After graduating from the New York Film Academy with a Master of Arts in Film and Technology Production, Don worked in various departments on a number of short and feature films. As a struggling artist who loved the art and craft of filmmaking, Don struggled to get by between gigs. Looking for more stability, Don devoured all the books, podcasts, and other types of content he could find on career success and money mindset. This unique perspective as a struggling artist turned entrepreneur who found his first taste of business success in the network marketing world has enabled him to build the freedom to pursue further ventures alongside his wife, Kimmy. Welcome, Don.
Hey, Candice. Glad to be here.
You are joining us from the Philippines. I do believe that's a first. I don't think I've ever interviewed anyone from the Philippines before, although this show has gone around the globe, which is, I think that is the best part, the best bonus that has happened for me as a podcast host since 2015. The best bonus has been all the groovy people I've gotten to meet from around the world.
I agree. I mean, same on my end as well. I mean, networking is a huge part of what we do as business owners. And this is such an organic way to do it because not only are you meeting people from all over the world, but you're having long form conversations with them. So it's great.
Exactly. And you're kind of held hostage to each other because you're on Zoom or audio. So it's distraction free and you really can dig into amazing conversations. All right, let's dig into it. Tell us your unique story. How did you get from film and all that to where you are today?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. That's why I always preface this answer with I wear a lot of hats, but I'm a storyteller at heart. And that really encompasses everything that I do. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also an artist. I started out as an artist because growing up, entrepreneurship wasn't really in a lot of people's vocabulary, right? I never liked to be put in a box. So I asked my mom one time, what's a job that you can decide to switch careers on a whim, right? If I could be an astronaut 1 month and then be a scuba diver the next, be an engineer the next, because I guess I just have that. I just have itchy feet. I never could stay in one place. And for some reason, my mom said that scientists are able to do whatever they want. And I think in hindsight, she meant that there are different types of scientists, but I guess my 4-year-old brain took that to mean scientists can be whatever they want. So I said scientist. And it was later down the line when I discovered that entrepreneurship had that flexibility and that leeway to be able to pivot if something's not working for you. And I remember one of my university professors asking me that same question. What do you want to do after you graduate? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I wanted to be a filmmaker because I discovered that visual storytelling was really the medium I wanted to pursue. So I told him filmmaker. He took one look at me, then said, so you don't want to make any money? And you know how jokes are half meant. So, I mean, there was probably something there and totally understandable. Like everything I ever wanted to do to make art and to change the world, which a lot of young minds tend to say, that didn't typically jive with whatever we're raised to do and to be. I just never was able to fit into a box. And it took me a long time finding the right mentorship, finding the right support groups, communities, like-minded people like yourself to really home in on what I ultimately wanted to do, which is a mix of different things, but at its core, at its very is to people. And that's why I'm a big podcaster. Currently, a lot of things underway right now as well. But life to me is an experiment and I'm having fun along the way.
So I kind of agree with your mom. I do think that scientists can do whatever they want. Because really, when you think about it, they can choose whatever field of study that they want to go to. And there are so many different kinds of scientists. My daughter's a geologist, and when you think of geology, there's, and actually she's a paleontologist. She's studying paleontology. So when you think of paleontology, most people think of dinosaurs, but she's not studying dinosaurs. She did her, her thesis on microscopic phosphates. I mean, that's not dinosaurs. That's the opposite of dinosaurs. So really, there are science is amazing because there are so many different fields. I mean, you can study one thing. There is a doctor who studied one protein that created a cancer treatment that has saved thousands and thousands and thousands of lives. That was from one protein. So I think your mom was right. Scientists really can do whatever they want. However, not in the way that you wanted. So I think I mentioned this before. My grandmother was a world-renowned artist, and my husband's an artist. My mom was an artist. My daughter is an artist, and from knowing my grandmother and my husband, they have made a living from their art. And I also know a couple of filmmakers. One of them did his graduate work in studying. He was a primatologist. He spent like 6 weeks or something in South America studying monkeys up in trees. Like he would like literally go up in the trees and study monkeys. And now he makes films. You can come at things from different angles, and you don't necessarily have to end where you start, if that makes sense. So there's a journey there.
Which I think is the best way to go about life, I think.
Well, and it's what you did, because you are using your film skills, your filmmaker skills, with your podcast and your video editing. I mean, I've seen your videos, they're beautiful. So you are using the skills that you learned, but you aren't necessarily doing what you thought you were going to do. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur, and also the lessons that perhaps some entrepreneurs need to learn from artists. Because I think, and that artists really need to, there's a lot there to unpack. So I'm going to let you, I'm going to let you take it from there, because I've given you a lot to work with.
Well, if we want to connect artists and entrepreneurs, I think they're cut from the same cloth. And I always go back to this term, storytelling. Both tell the story of, well, humanity, if you want to paint it in a broad stroke, because artists and entrepreneurs, they thrive on creativity. They think out of the box. They create solutions, or they present things in a way that people can relate to, that they can grasp, that inform something about, that help them learn about themselves and to live out life a little bit better as a result, hopefully, of that creation. And that's why I think both artists and entrepreneurs are cut from the same cloth. And I think that's why, personally speaking, I was able to make that transition. Now, what you were telling me earlier, I think before we hit record, is artists tend to think that entrepreneurship is something completely foreign to them, in a similar way as an artist would probably think that STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, all that hard stuff is completely different from them. And that's a completely different topic. But in terms of business, I think artists just aren't taught how to monetize their art. Because my teacher was half correct when he said, so you don't want to make any money. I mean, that comes from something. That comes from an assumed stereotype, I guess you could say, which stereotypes in a way are half true. Most artists, myself included, didn't know how to monetize their art, because we are taught how to make whatever we want to make. You know, I took up a Master of Arts in Film and Media Production. I learned how to do the art and craft of filmmaking, but in terms of actually getting the money, getting the capital to actually be able to make those films, and films arguably are the most expensive medium to get into as an artist, I had to fill that gap. And again, like I said before, I had to do that through mentorship, through finding the right support groups. Now, incidentally, my foray into entrepreneurship was a little off the beaten path. It was actually through marrying my wife, Kimmy. She and her parents had been involved in the network marketing space for a little over 15 years. And that was, for me, the gateway into learning about business as a whole. We can, or we don't have to go into our journey in network marketing, but suffice it to say, the principles that we learned in that venture, I mean, again, just through the mentorship alone, and through the leadership skills, the soft skills, relationship building, finance, all of those things carried over into what I did as an artist. And I was able to finally put the pieces together and create a roadmap for myself on how to actually, make money doing what I love to do, which is making films and a few other things. I also like to write. I do a little bit of photography, and now I know how to transition from turning that into a serious hobby into something I can actually make a living out of. So I think I'll stop there. If you have any other follow-up questions.
There's so many. There's so many. So how long have your in-laws, were they with the same company for 15 years?
Same company. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how extraordinary that is in network marketing?
I do. I really do.
It's and that's a testament to the company that they're with as well. You can tell. I don't care about that. If you want to share what company it is, I don't care.
Yeah, Amway.
Oh, okay. So Amway is the mother of all network marketing companies.
Yeah, exactly.
And I actually was with Amway for a few years when I was in my early 20s, but it wasn't a good fit for me. Right. And that's the beautiful thing about network marketing is that there are so many options out there that you can find the right fit. And I finally did find the right fit for me about 10 years ago. So I've been with the same network marketing company for 10 years. But do you see that I'm a podcast host? I run my husband's business. It's our business together, but I'm the CEO. And I have a network marketing business and I have a coaching business.
Yep.
So that is at the very heart of entrepreneurship is multiple streams of income. A lot of folks would argue that, and especially now because it's gotten network marketing has gotten a lot of really bad press in the last couple of years. And I swear to God, if I hear "Hey girl," in a derogatory term again, I'm just going to slap somebody. but I haven't. See, I even forgot what "Hey girl" was because it's so derogatory now.
Yeah,
it took me a minute to figure out because I've taken it out of my vocabulary. You've been in this space for a while now. You've got this perspective of your in-laws who've been with Amway forever, because I'm assuming you've been married more than 1 year.
Yeah, 7 years now.
7 years. So we're talking about a 22-year experience, right? So 22 years of experience through your in-laws with the network marketing industry. What is it that you think makes people who aren't in that space think it's so terrible, and why do you think the people who make it in the business have been able to overcome that? That's a good question, isn't it?
It is the question, I think. And just a little correction, 15 years now. So my in-laws had been in it for almost 10 years by the time my wife and I met, then plus 7 years. So still, it's been longer than most people have been in the industry in total.
Exactly.
What more one company.
Exactly.
But failure, I don't believe that failure exists in the network marketing world, because I don't think anyone really fails. Even if we were to use the worst example, which is somebody lost money or somebody lost friendships, the worst things that people say when they say, I tried network marketing and it didn't work out for me, I failed. To me, that's not even a failure, because, and I don't want to step on toes here, but I know a lot of people, leaders, who stuck through it anyway, in spite of that. And I understand, I totally get it. I want to be sensitive to the fact that everybody can make their own decisions. Everybody has their own risk appetite. And if people believe it's really not for them, they have a right. And that's the beauty of the industry, by the way. They have a right to exit unless it's an illegitimate company that's really out to get your money. Obviously, you should stay far away from those companies. But all the legit ones, the reason why so many people fail, or let's just say so many people give up, is because there's such a low barrier to entry. In fact, for a lot of companies, there's no barrier to entry. It's completely free to join, to get your number, and to start selling and recruiting people. And because of that, you get all stripes. Unlike, let's say, a C-suite position in a company, or anything that requires major certification or a lot of experience, even if we're talking real estate, let's say, because you have to be certified, right, to get into that world. Network marketing, you don't have to have any prerequisites to become a distributor in the majority of companies, if not all legitimate companies. I'm not really familiar with all the companies and their regulations. And so, because that barrier to entry is so low, you get all types of people with varying ambitions, varying personality types, varying risk appetites. And statistically speaking, it's natural. By default, you're going to get a lot of people who are dropping out. I mean, even in other business ventures, in real estate and investing, what have you, any of these other ventures that require a certain level of expertise or accreditation, you still have a lot of dropouts. You still have a lot of businesses that fail. The majority of small businesses fail. What more in this thing that you invest $30, $60, $150 to get into? Sometimes you can get that money back. And nobody's keeping you accountable except yourself. Your upline's there, obviously, the person who sponsored you, the person who recruited you into the company, who's there to ideally train you, to mentor you, all that stuff. But they're not allowed to push you, to force you to do anything, because they're not your boss. Your upline's not your boss. Your company's not your boss. You are your own boss. That's how the industry is marketed. You are your own boss. You own your own business. Therefore, it's on you if you decide to quit. And that's not on the company. Again, there's legitimate companies and there's illegitimate companies. You join a legitimate company and you do everything that the company tells you to do, and you just stick it out, you will succeed. I truly believe that you will succeed if you stick it out. And everybody succeeds in a different way. I've sort of deviated somewhat. My podcast, Your Sovereign Downline, is all about our network marketing journey, the lessons that we've learned. I did it the old school way. It's not working out for me and my wife, and we're already having kids. We're we're making a family. I don't want to spend too much time doing it the old school way, which we've done for 6 years with little results. And so we've pivoted to using social media marketing to build our business with even better results. And we've already achieved more in the last 7 months than we ever did in the last 7 years, 10 years for my wife. And so that, I think, is a testament to, if you just stick it out, and if you're truly entrepreneurial, which I believe I am, and I believe my wife truly is, that's why we never gave up. And instead of saying this isn't working out for us, we said, it's working out for others. It's working out for some people. What are other people doing that we aren't, that we haven't tried yet? Because we see so much promise in this that we just got to find a solution. Solution orientedness is, I think, one of the top entrepreneurial qualities there is. And so we stuck it out. We were creative. We sought a solution. We sought support. And now we're not the most successful, but certainly the amount of success that we had is far more than the average person. So I think that's really it. It's just a matter of sticking it out and realizing that, statistically speaking, a lot more people are going to drop out than are going to succeed in an opportunity that has low to no barrier to entry.
You're absolutely right. And I think the average income of a network marketer is like $5 a month or something. I mean, it's really low. That is a statistic that I just made up. I'll have to look it up now. I'm going to have to look up what the average income of a network marketer.
That's about right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it is really low, but it's also a reflection of how much work you put into it and luck, and which is exactly the same as if you're working in a corporate job. If you came to a corporate job and you spent 5 minutes a day making phone calls, and the rest of the time, the 7 hours and 55 other minutes talking to your coworkers and having a good time, you're going to make $5 worth of income if you're sales-based, right? If you're commission-based sales, there is the luck factor and there's the skill set factor. So, network marketing isn't for the faint at heart. And I'm going to have to agree with you on the old ways aren't working, because the old ways are gone. I can't remember the last time I was actually in a room with more than 10 other people, right? It's been over 2 years since I was in a room with 10 other people, and I network constantly. As a matter of fact, I'm in the networking chapter, and last month I had the most one-to-ones, and I didn't leave my house. So the world is different, right? I mean, I do leave my house, but I didn't leave my house for the one-to-ones. And I tend to network with people from around. It's an international networking organization. So why wouldn't you want to internationally network? So I tend to have, one-to-ones with people from around the globe, which is kind of fun. So where was I going with the story? Oh, the old ways. So I recently interviewed, and he is like one of my network marketing heroes. So I recently interviewed Todd Falcone, who I really, truly respect. And I asked him if the old, actually he was on, I have to show you. This was my vision board for the year. And who's at the top of my vision board? Todd Falcone. So it's April, and I've had 2 out of 3 of those done, or 1 out of 3 of those done. The other one is Noah St. John, and I have a friend who knows him, actually 2 people who know him, so that will happen soon. But if you know Neil deGrasse Tyson, anybody listening, if you know Neil deGrasse Tyson, tell him that there is a really groovy woman in Michigan who would love to interview him on her podcast about gratitude. Okay. So anyway, Todd Falcone, I asked him where he thought the future, if the old ways were going away. And he said, no, I think there's still a place for in-person meetings and big events. And I sort of don't agree with that. I think that those big in-person meetings are gone. I don't think they're going to be a thing anymore. We're still being taught. And again, I've been with my network marketing company for 10 years, and they are still teaching people to share a 2-minute video of somebody else talking. Share a 2-minute video. I don't have 2 minutes of bandwidth to watch somebody's video. If somebody sent me a 2-minute video about their network marketing opportunity, I wouldn't watch it. I just wouldn't. So I think that I would love to hear what you're doing on social media, because my business is still growing. I don't know why, because when you've been around 10 years, things happen in your business that you have no control over and you don't do anything about. Right. So my business seems to grow every month, but I don't do the videos. and I don't do the in-person, the big in-person meetings anymore. But I also am not doing social media marketing. So I would love to hear what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I guess a couple of things, Candace. I want to push back a little bit on your belief that in-person meetings aren't a thing anymore. I agree that
Go ahead.
In-person meetings, when it comes to lead generation, if it's not dead, it's on life support. Absolutely. In most places, it's on life support. Nobody wants to meet for coffee anymore. Unfortunately, that's a different story on its own. But lead generation, finding the right people. But when you filter out, once you find people who actually want to run with this thing, the event industry is huge now. It's bigger than it's ever been. I mean, conventions, annual conventions, to build that belief that people have started to, it's in their heart already. They know, they see promise in the opportunity. And so they want to learn more.
That's the difference between a big opportunity meeting, where you invite guests and the guests are shown the business opportunity versus celebration,
Sure.
and there is a difference there. And I agree with you that the big celebration events should never go away.
Yeah. And I think those are more important. But times have changed, and lead generation and training and education should be done remotely now. It shouldn't be a one-to-one thing. For the most part, it should be one-to-many. And one of the ways I've been doing that is through my podcast. So it's called Your Sovereign Downline. I recently switched from doing 3 episodes a week to 1 episode a week. And the whole premise behind that podcast is just, again, it comes back to telling my story. Because the thing with one objection that people might put up is saturation. And I think that objection's been around even before the internet days anyway. But you can see their point. Saturation. I mean, the internet, everybody's on it now and everybody's doing their own thing. What makes somebody join you versus somebody else, especially if that other person is in the exact same company as you? Well, it's your story. It's how you handle adversity, conflict, if people can relate to you. And this is something that my upline, his name's Mike Wilson. He's been in the game for over 40 years, and he doesn't even have a social media presence because he built 40 years ago, retired for like 30 of them. And now he just speaks on stage at our at our company events. But what Mike said is, you don't have to have a rags to riches story in order to be seen as a leader, as a credible authority to other people. You just need to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of them. And guess what? By virtue of the fact that you have a podcast, or it doesn't even have to be a podcast, a blog, a vlog series, a YouTube channel, as long as you have some presence online, people will already believe that you're 1 or 2 steps ahead of them because you've got your marketing a little more dialed in than them. The people who are wondering how to do this, how to play this game in the modern world using the power of social media and the internet. If you're online, you're seen as an authority and you just tell your story. Another objection is, I don't have much to teach. I'm still new. And I have the privilege of having been in the industry for 6 years, almost 7 years before I started my podcast. So I had a lot of stories to tell, and I still have a lot of stories to tell, and I'm putting that all on the podcast. But for anybody who's new, if you want to start building your brand online right now, which is an asset, by the way, you're not going to see any returns on your brand for a long time. But when they come in exponentially, and it's unbelievable. And
the returns come in ways that are sometimes unexpected. I was recently paid by a Fortune 10 company to put a link in one of my blog posts. I didn't expect to ever get paid to put a link in a blog post. And they came to me, and it's a Fortune 10 company, So sometimes it's surprising. And sometimes you're going to get results that are so unexpected, but are still pleasant, right? They're still, oh, sure. Wow, cool. I'll do that. Yeah. Okay. Wow. I just made money. But the thing is, you got to be consistent, which is what Don's talking about. So sorry I interrupted you, but I wanted to throw in my 2 cents because that's what I do.
Yeah. And those opportunities usually come out of left field, because one thing that I think every content creator has gone through is periods of just slogging it out, putting out episode after episode, article after article, seeing almost no returns. And then one day out of the blue, maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year, or even 10 years for some people since starting their content machine, somebody reaches out and says, you changed my life, or I love your stuff. I made some changes in my life/business as a result of what you had to say. And then you're like, wow. And then that imposter syndrome like peaks for a bit. And you're like, really, you actually listen to my stuff? Of all the people out there, you actually listen to my stuff. And I didn't really say much. I didn't really teach much. I just talked about my failures, talked about what I learned from those failures, and I moved on. And that's what I did. I'm speaking from experience here. Now, I mean, just 7 months in, I now have 2 to 3 people reaching out every single week asking to join my team. And I barely taught anything. I just said, do what I'm doing, make a podcast, like post on social media, talk about your story. It's nothing cutting edge. Listen to Gary Vee for that stuff. But why did they join me? Because they like my style. They said, I can relate to you. I'm not the biggest success, but I can relate to your story, your personality. It jives with me, and you're not intimidating because you're not a rags to riches story. A rags to riches story, just to finish my point earlier, tends to draw people away because they think that they have to come from nothing and go through hell and high water in order to be a credible authority. If you're just Joe Blow, whoever, a teacher down the road, a nurse, whatever, an average job, you can still succeed. You just need to be human.
Well, I love to think about, and this is going to sound political, but it's rags to riches. So there's 2 presidents of the United States. One of them came from a political background. His father was a politician. His grandfather was a politician. And the other one grew up in a house that didn't have running water and had an outhouse. And they were George Bush and Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton grew up in a house that didn't have running water and an outhouse. And both Bushes came from a long line of politicians, but they both became president of the United States. So you can get there from different ways. You don't have to have that rag to riches stories. You can be effective either way. I'm a huge fan of both George H.W. and Bill Clinton. I think they both brought something to the table that was unique and different, and put their own spin on it. Now, do I agree with their politics? No, not really. Yes and no. But I respect both of those men. And so it didn't matter which one had the rags to riches story. What matters was where they got. It's like I have 3 cats, right? I have 3 cats, and each of them, no cat likes a door to be closed. Do you have any cats?
I do.
Okay. Do they like it when
4 cats last I counted?
When the doors are closed, what do? They try to open them. So I've gotten in a habit where I just don't close the door. I don't latch a door all the way. I just, I'll push it closed, but I don't keep it latched because inevitably there's going to be a cat outside meowing. So I just let them come in if they want to. So the 3 cats have different ways of opening the door, but all 3 of them open the door. They all know how to open the door. They just do it differently. It's the same thing with network marketing. It's exactly what Don's saying. All right, go on. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you. You've got such good, valid points about network. I know this is supposed to be about art. Okay, let's bring it back to art. We got to bring it back to art. What can an artist learn from a network marketer, and what can a network marketer learn from an artist?
That is an interesting question. I've never been asked that before, but I think it comes back to that earlier point I made about finding solutions to your problems, right? Because you have a dream, right? You want to get your works out there. If you're a network marketer, you have some sort of dream, right? Financial freedom, travel, new car, new house, whatever. If you slog it out for the first few months, you're not going to achieve the results that you want. You could follow all the directions that your upline gives you. You can make your art. You can spend months honing your craft, but when it's done, how do you actually get people to see the finished product? And I think that's it. That's probably a little too simple an answer that you're looking for, but it's just that. It's just thinking out of the box. And I think this is kind of a theme of our conversation. It all goes back to finding somebody who's already done what it is that you want to do, and then just asking them. There's so many people who want to share their successes, because that's the greatest form of flattery, is somebody asking you, somebody telling you you're an inspiration. How did you do it? A lot of people are happy to share their experience for free. And I mean, come on, there's a million forums and communities out there of people sharing their experiences. Whatever niche you're in, I guarantee there's a community for it. So just get out there and find minds and people who are a little further ahead than you. They don't have to be, again, super successful folks. In fact, the super successful folks are harder to reach. Find everyday normal human beings who are just a few steps ahead of you. Ask for their advice and their experiences, and expand your thinking a little bit.
So your upline in Amway is someone who's really not. He's pretty hands off in the growth of the business right now.
At this
is
point,
that your
yeah.
sponsor or your? Or
He's
just
not my sponsor. He's
Okay.
he's just up there.
So this is what really happens in network marketing. People leave. So again, like I said before, I've been around for 10 years, and the company that I'm with, it's Send Out Cards, has fluctuated in and out. Things have happened. There was in a couple of years we had, it's been 10 years. So in a couple of years, there were times where a lot of people left because of something that happened. But I stuck with the company because I use the product every freaking day, right? I use the product every freaking day, and it has helped me make money in my other businesses, right? It's a tool that I use in my other businesses. So why would I why would I give up the opportunity to make money from a tool that I'm using for something else, right? So my upline's gone, her upline's gone, and now I'm, directly under one of the top people in the company. But I don't talk to her very often because I don't need to. And there are a lot of other people, and I do weekly meetings where I do training meetings where I teach people how to use the products and how to market the products. So I have attracted people who have different uplines that come to my trainings. So, and I'm all for it. I'm happy to train anybody in Send Out Cards who needs training and teach them everything I know if they don't have a connection with their upline. And there are plenty of people like that in whatever network marketing company you're in. So don't feel like you have to be married to your upline. I hate it when people say, well, I failed because I didn't like my sponsor. Well, that's a cop-out. You failed because you didn't want to do the work to find someone else to mentor you. Right.
All right.
Wow, that was a tangent from. Okay, let's talk about working with Kimmy. So, then we need to wrap up. Wow, we've been chatting for a while. So yesterday, well, not when this episode drops, it'll have been a month or so. But my husband and I recently celebrated our 24th wedding anniversary, and
congratulations.
All but 2 months of those 24 years, we have been business partners. So we started our business 2 months after we got married. And we found out we were pregnant 6 weeks after we were married. So that was a really big month. June of 1998, we found out we were pregnant. I think we bought a truck and we launched a business. So it was a big month and a pretty big year. There are a lot of not rules, but there's a lot of things that you need to do if you want to stay in business with your spouse for a long time. You've been working with your wife for, was it 7 years?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
7 years. So you have a different perspective than I do because 7 years ago was a much different world than 24 years ago. So your advice is actually probably going to be more applicable to people listening to this podcast. So what's your advice to work with your spouse?
My advice, I feel like an imposter here because it's 7 years, but we're learning something about each other every single day. So, and I think
tip number one, learn something from each other every day.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that is the lesson right there. In fact, you may have watched this episode that I did recently with Chris Williams, and he talks a lot about doing business with his spouse as well. And he was on my podcast. One lesson that we took away from how do you do business, how do you work in business with your spouse, is it's more or less the same as doing marriage, period, which is every day you grow, or sometimes you go down a step. Sometimes you just have a bad day or a bad month or a bad year, and you come out a little. Success is in a straight line, right? Sometimes you go back, sometimes you go forward, sometimes you boost up, sometimes you fall back more than you ever thought you would, and you just have to be there for your partner. Right? Because that's the name of the game in business. If you have a business partner, that's sort of what you do anyway, right? You're there to support your business partner in his or her stumbling blocks, and you have to complement each other's strengths. A business partnership is like a marriage. It's practically a marriage by itself. And so it's just doubly challenging in the fact that your business partner just happens to be your spouse, the person you're spending the rest of your life with in the same house. And so you just have to be extra vigilant about that. And I'm learning every single day, like my goals, my dreams, and my tolerance, and the way I react to things. And same with Kimmy. changes every single day. We have to constantly check in with each other. And so the secret to a sustainable marriage/business partnership is constantly going back to your partner and asking them, simple questions such as, how do you feel today? What are you thinking about? Because those simple questions tell a lot about what's at the root of that person, what's going on in their lives at the moment. And so I think it's as simple as that, because when you know where they're coming from, if you know the root of what they're feeling, what they desire, what they want, what they need, then that'll inform everything that you do, outwards from that. The internal informs the external. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it comes down to that. If you want to succeed in business and in marriage simultaneously, it's just about checking in with your spouse every single day and making sure that you're on the same page as that person, because you have to be if you're to succeed in marriage and in business.
That's a very good point, and I want to add to it. Sometimes you're not on the same page, but the end of the book is the same, right? So if you know that the end of the story, the last words of the book are these, whatever, the end. You both know that the end is the end of the story. And sometimes you have to go different routes to get to the end, but you're both going to get to the end. So that's, I add almost 20 more years experience on top of what you just said. Sometimes you're not on the same page, but you know that the end point is the same. And my big advice is, have separate roles, fill each other's gaps, have separate roles. I'm the CEO. I do the sales and marketing. He's the artist. He's in charge of operations. Sometimes when I get involved in something that's really should be hit in his court, which has happened last week, I was involved in something that I shouldn't have been involved in. I just said, you know what, honey, I can't help you with this because I keep getting the wrong information. It would be better if you just took care of this completely. And then when you have the answer, come back to me. Sometimes you have to do that. So I was involved when I shouldn't have been involved. So having separate roles in the company, he's chief operations, I'm chief executive. We have different roles in the company, right? So actually, I should call myself chief marketing officer, not chief executive officer, because we're both the executive. We make the big decisions together. So I did write a blog post called 24 rules for working with your business partner. No, 24 rules for working with your spouse. And the link to that article will be in the show notes, as well as links to all of Don's podcasts. You have 2 podcasts, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So both podcasts will be linked in the show notes, and his website and all his socials, all that good stuff will be there. So if you want to talk to Don about his business opportunity, about his podcast or anything, all those links are there. If you want to listen to his podcast, all those links are there. I do have one more social media tip. Because if you wanted, because he's talking about doing video and doing podcasts and stuff, I found that if I did 60-second videos where I talk about a product, that those got a lot of traction on YouTube. So I haven't put the video up yet, but this is a bar of soap that I bought off of Amazon. It's called Al Jamal. I think it's pronounced Al Jamal soap. It's made in Palestine, and it's made the same way that they've been making this soap for 2,000 years. So they haven't changed the way they make this soap in 2,000 years. And it's made by spreading the soap down on the floor. And you can even see parts of the gravel from the floor that they put it on. And it's really nice soap. So I made a video about it, just a little video about it, and edited it down to 60 seconds. I have to post it. I haven't done that yet. And I've done that quite a few times for things that I've found that I like or were interesting. The story about why I bought this soap is because I saw a video on YouTube about it, right? So if you do little product videos like that, little 60-second videos, they got to be 60 seconds or shorter. Like they can't be 61 seconds, because if they're 61 seconds, YouTube won't put them as a short, right? So you make these little 59-second videos about a product that you sell, that will give you some authority too. So that's my take on what Don's talking about with social media. Do you have thoughts on that?
I do. And it really is a combination of the two biggest realities of internet marketing nowadays, which is video is king and attention spans are shorter than goldfishes across the spectrum. And so combining those two things, and I'm not really a product guy at the moment with what we're doing with our business. I'm more on the side of opportunity. And so that's why my podcast and just sharing snippets of the podcast are what I do right now. Like, don't ask me to give you any super secret advanced tip that no one's ever done, because I'm still figuring it out myself. But I'm sticking to that avenue. And guess what? It's working out for us. Like the rest is gravy at this point, because I think just like you, network marketing for us is just a stepping stone to be able to pursue our real passions. For me, it's film and we want to travel more and all that kind of stuff. And my wife is actually going to start doing her own ventures as well. And so network marketing is sort of like, for us at least, a means to an end. And one of the guys that I follow, his name is Steve Larson. And I know one of the questions you want to ask me is what's a guest that you want to have on the podcast? If you haven't had Steve yet, I suggest Steve Larson. He is like the king of sales funnels and offer creation right now. He was partnered with Russell Brunson of ClickFunnels. So anyway, Steve Larson always says that there is no saturation, there is no competition for network marketers online, because so few people are doing it. And just again, by the virtue of telling your story, you're already setting yourself apart from the majority of people in this space.
And you just opened up the opportunity. There's somebody building an Amway business right now who's looking for their angle and doesn't understand the business building aspect of it, the recruiting aspect of it, but loves the products. Because when I was with Amway, I had this little carpet cleaner that was not electric. It was you put the carpet cleaner in it and then you brushed it on the floor, and it worked really well. It didn't suck it up, so you had to wait for it to dry and then vacuum. But it was really inexpensive. I mean, I don't even know if Amway still makes that thing, but I was thinking about it a couple of days ago because I had a spot on my floor that needed to be cleaned because the cat threw up. So I needed to clean the spot on the floor, and I was down on my hands and knees scrubbing this thing, and I was like, I wonder if Amway still makes that carpet cleaner. So a 60-second video about how well the carpet cleaner works. I don't even know do you know if it's still available? I don't know, but just something
probably
like
depends
that.
On the country.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's true too. But something as simple as that for the people who want to be more product based. And there are folks who come into network marketing, and I'm talking to the audience right now. There are people, I'm talking to you, listener. There are people who come into network marketing who love the product and just want to use the product and maybe share it to pay for their own products, right? And those people, love on those people because those people pay your bills. And then there are people who come into the company who want to build a business and want to go on fancy vacations and not have to really work, and those people buy your house, okay? So love on all of them, and all of them are okay. And if you are the kind of person who just wants to pay for your own products, that's okay too. That's okay. But you can still take away some of it. If you want to pay for your own products and you want to figure out how, just talk about it, play a video. I just, I'm going to use send out cards as an example. I sent myself this copy of a postcard that I sent to somebody else because I wanted to have a copy of it. I sent this postcard to a handful of people who were at a summit that I was a speaker at, who filled out a form. And it was just one of the ways that I thanked them was by sending them a postcard. Right. So I could turn that into a 15-second video. How I say thank you to people who fill out my form after a summit. 15-second video. And it would go viral on TikTok, right? I'm not a TikToker. Do you have a suggestion on which platform a person should use to promote their network marketing company?
It totally depends on your company and the types of products and services that you offer, and on the personality and on the target demographic that you have. So, it depends on a lot of those different factors, but, can't go wrong with the staples, But first of all, pick one before you start going all of them. Instagram's always good. Facebook's always good for the older demographic. TikTok is great, but from a buyer's perspective, you're going to have a little bit of a harder time because you have a lot of the Gen Zs who are still entering the workforce. So it depends. It depends on a lot of factors. But just one note on the videos. I do videos because you reminded me of saying thank you to people, right? When somebody signs up, applies to join my team, I send them a video, a 1-minute video. Saying their name, saying thank you. I know you put this on your application form. Really appreciate it. I'll get back to you. Just even that makes a huge impression because so few people, and that's why when you're communicating with people on social media, I suggest, if not a video, send at least a recording, a voice recording to them, answering whatever question that they have, because that makes a huge difference.
So now is your opportunity to answer the biggest question of all. For whom or what are you most grateful?
Well, this is where I have to talk about my faith. I know this is not a religious podcast, but first and foremost, I thank God because I wouldn't be here, I believe, and I wouldn't have all these opportunities and this amazing woman who I'm doing business in life with if it wasn't for the Lord. So that's first and foremost. And secondly, it goes to my family. And I think I'm really going down the list here of my what I call my F triad, which I always talk about on my podcast, faith, family, freedom. Those are my first principles. I know it's different for everybody, but those are personally mine. Find your first principles and be grateful for whatever those give you. So for me, it's number one, faith. I'm thankful to the Lord. Number two, family. I'm thankful to my wife, my son, my parents, the people who are closest to me, right? By blood or not by blood, the people who I can confide with. I'm thankful for them. And I'm thankful for the fact that the world that we're living in right now, we tend to take a lot of our resources for granted, but I'm glad that we're free, faith, family, freedom. I'm glad that we have so many more opportunities today than we did even yesterday to be able to pursue our dreams and to make a difference and to pay it forward and to leave a legacy. And for that, I'm grateful for everything that comes my way. And I never take any opportunity for granted. You know, for example, I don't take this conversation with you for granted at all. I know there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom that I'm picking up from this. And since this is running a little longer than usual, I'm sure there's extra nuggets of wisdom out there for anybody listening to this show. So I thank you, Candace, for providing this platform as well.
And thank you for joining us this week for Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast, helping micropreneurs find your micro influencer magic. Be sure to check the show notes at gratitudegeek.com, episode 117, for links to all the groovy resources mentioned today, and of course, to connect with Dawn and all of Dawn's resources. And while you're there, why not subscribe to the show on Audible, iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast players? There's a button there that you can push, and it'll take you to all those links. Our theme music is track 14 by Rev Brock and Solily. I've been your host, Candace Ridardi. Join me on my mission to spread gratitude, sow seeds of appreciation, and harvest a bounty of generosity and kindness. Stay groovy, my friends.
I know we can make it easier than they can. We can make it better than before. I know we can make it easier than they can. We can make it better than before. Some things just can't be ignored.
Stay groovy, my friends.